I would say there has been a lot of discussions about the rare earth metals recently, how US is securing that. Fortunately, battery doesn't really have those rare earth metals. And between lithium, cobalt, and nickel, those are critical for lithium-ion batteries, but they're actually transition metals. And especially for Factorial, we're not using LLP, which is also a critical material that has been quite constrained from the China market. And also, we don't use that as well. So I think to that extent, we have been very well protected from the global supply chain constraints. But also, we also want to be aware of the potential threats coming up. And right now, we actually have been actively working on not only just to work with direct suppliers and building the supply chain coalition, but also working with recycling partners. Recently we announced this partnership with a Korean conglomerate called Sungil, and they're one of the largest recyclers in the space, not only for lithium-ion batteries, but they have done a lot for solid-state battery as well. So I think that's actually going to be deeply protect us with a closed loop supply chain in the future, especially when the company is at scale.
Forgive me. Solid state batteries, what exactly are they? I feel like we so often talk about EV batteries and what's going on. We throw terms around, but what exactly is a solid state battery, which is your bread and butter, correct?
Yes, exactly, Carol. And I would say solid state battery is like a traditional battery, but it's instead of using a liquid electrolyte, it uses a solid or quasi solid state material, which means you combine a little bit of solid and a little bit of liquid together. But the solid content will stabilize the cell dramatically. And this makes the battery safer, longer lasting, and more powerful because it can store more energy and it's less likely to leak or catch on fire. And as you know, like the biggest market for batteries is on transportation, but actually battery is not only limited to transportation. It is in the air, it's on the water, it's in the robotics, and it's also everywhere for energy storage for homes and businesses. So it's fundamentally infrastructure, technology, and product rather than something very narrowly scoped in a very specific application.
And we mentioned that, as Tim said earlier, that you partnered with automotive manufacturers, including Mercedes-Benz, Stellantis, Hyundai. I'm just curious, so you guys are working together. Is there actually products on the market? Give us an idea of kind of where you guys are in this process.
Yeah, that's a great question. We started the collaboration with those companies many years ago, and Hyundai and Kia were our first investor in the company, and Mercedes and Stellantis led our 200 million round in 2022. And since then, the company has gone a long way for product development. We launched the first 100 amp hour solid state battery with Stellantis in CES under their keynote speech. It was very well received. Since then, we have shipped thousands of batteries to our global OEM partners. As of mid of last year, we launched the first B sample to Mercedes, which also marked the first B sample shipment to a global automotive globally for a solid state battery company, which is quite a breakthrough. And with that B sample, we actually were able to build the first vehicle together with Mercedes earlier this year, and has the first vehicle rolling on the street in Stuttgart. And that also marked the first electric vehicle that's been built by a solid state battery. And it's not only the first application, a debut for a solid state battery in a vehicle, but it's also in the broader e-mobility sector as well. And what is even more exciting is that recently, not only with this automotive, but
Right.
we also announced a major breakthrough with the first shipment to a drone maker in North America. So that's going to be a very important near-term application for this technology at a small scale.
Couple quick questions. So wait, go back to, and I think you talked about this in terms of, batteries, part of the problems. I mean, EVs, yay, like people like them, but then there's the batteries, right? That, the waste and what happens with batteries, because you kind of can't do much with them. So I'm just curious about what happens with these batteries after they don't work. What's the kind of, I don't know, recycling abilities or capabilities? Just give us an update on that.
Yeah, recycling is definitely a very important part to close the loop, and not only just from the circular economy perspective, but it's important for the cost and supply chain resilience in the future. And I think in the near term, what we see is that a lot of the battery recycling is coming to two pieces. One is for the scrapping of the battery and the vehicle as a whole. And two is about using those scrap materials to turn that into a black mass, and from the black mass to refine that into the raw materials and turning back to the battery again. So that's the recycling process that most of the recyclers have been adopting globally. And that's why we have been very aggressively working with actually two Korean recyclers right now, and both have a strong presence in the US, like Sangyu and Yangpu. That's the one we actually announced last year in front of Sangyu. What is more important that I think we also need more presence in the US for solid state battery recycling in the future, which will become a mainstream for our energy storage and e-mobility. So yeah, we're actually working very closely with one of the US recyclers today to increase and enhance our recycling capabilities in the US.
We're speaking with Siyu Huang. She's founder and CEO of Factorial. She has a PhD in chemistry, but I'm still trying to understand how to build a battery myself. She knows how to do it.
Well, what's interesting is you sound like you're making progress, and you talk about the first vehicle with Mercedes, and the first shipment to, I think it was a drill company, I think in the US. Forgive me if I didn't hear it correctly.
Yeah, a drone company. So that will probably be the first application. It's actually not only for commercial, but also defense applications for batteries.
So how do you ramp up? When do you ramp up? So it sounds like you're still kind of finding your way forward. So when is there a mass production point that makes you a financially viable company going forward?
Yeah, so we are actually having another fleet coming up from the first vehicle. So as we announced with Mercedes for the first vehicle this year, which we built and delivered already, we're actually announcing with a fleet coming up in 2026 with Stellantis. We just announced a major milestone that both companies achieved last month to deliver this 2026 fleet that's led by Dodge Charger Daytona. And it's not only just for Dodge, but it's also span across the Stella Large platform, which including Jeep, Chrysler, Alfa Romeo, and Maserati. And so with the fleet in 26, we're looking at 27 for the first commercial deployment. And as early as 28 or 29, that we can see the scale coming up for this market. But even before that, we may say like drone market and some of the defense applications may come even ahead of 2027.